in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally in 29 different locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's topic is People and the Web, Psychology, Sociology of Web Consumers. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, president of W3 Consulting, a consultancy providing small businesses with practical approaches to business development using web, mobile, social, and digital technologies. Before I hand the presentation over to Ray, I wanted to give him a special shout out today as part of National Small Business Week. Ray is not only a small business owner, but he's a small business evangelist. He works tirelessly to help small businesses launch, grow, and succeed. He's been doing our Google and Beyond webinar since 2012. In addition to volunteer counseling, he's been doing at the Alexandria SBDC since 2001. So thank you, Ray. And if you all have any questions during the presentation, please type those into the question window. And without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That was wonderful, and welcome everybody to Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web. And so today, just a couple of housekeeping notes. As Tracy said, you are more than welcome to ask questions now. Just put those questions into the question panel, and I'll be happy to answer those as we make our way along through today's webinar. At the end, we'll leave a little bit of time just for people to ask Q&A, and I'll be glad to stay after and answer those questions once time runs out. If you have questions afterward, I will have my email address on the final slide. If you have to tweet at me, go ahead and tweet at W3 Consulting, hashtag that Beyond Google, and of course follow Virginia SBDC. So Tracy and her team over at the Virginia Small Business Development Center Network is helping you throughout Virginia, making sure that you have the resources and the knowledge to be able to make your businesses successful. So at Virginia SBDC, go ahead and follow them. Today we'll be talking about basically the psychology of web marketing is sort of the crux of what we're going to be talking about. And what I want to do over the next hour is really give you sort of an understanding of some of the basics of human psychology and sociology, psychology more heavily than sociology, but I just wanted to tie in the sociological components because we are going to talk a little bit about social media and how social media actually is such a close tie-in to some of these psychological principles. And so I'll do that at the very top of our discussion and sort of just give you an idea of where we're coming from. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the various applications in web marketing. Since we're talking about people on the web, we want to talk about how this is really applicable. Now, I'm just going to give you an overview in this little section, but then we're going to deep dive into each of the various principles, and I've identified 8 of them. There are many, many more. I could spend literally the entire day talking about human needs and their relationship to the psychology of marketing, but I won't do that to you. I'm going to condense us down to just 8, and we're going to cover those 8 principles. And if you have questions as we make our way through, we can go ahead and do that. I tried to stay, science light in the sense of, not quoting too many studies or any of that kind of stuff. I just want to give you the crux of the principles and then the application associated with it, how you can actually utilize that in your life. If you have any questions about the underlying studies or any of those other things, feel free to go ahead and email me after the webinar, and I'll be happy to send you the source materials for specific ones. I'm not going to, write a treatise in email for anyone, so please don't. But if you want a specific study or something like that, I'm more than happy to go ahead and give you the references for that. So let's start off with the basics of human needs. So the whole idea here is that psychology is the study of human behavior, okay? And so that's the basic definition. And sociology, of course, then, is the study of the way humans interact, okay? So think of it as group behavior. So it's looking at how people actually work with one another, so interacting with one another, as opposed to the individual and how he or she responds to stimuli, okay? So we have psychology and we have sociology, and we start the story off really with the great American psychologist Dr. Abraham Maslow. Okay, and Dr. Maslow came out in 1943 with this book called The Theory of Human Motivation. All right, and this has all become known today as, you might know it, as the hierarchy of needs. And I want to go through the hierarchy of needs because I discussed this in my book that came out in 2014, Solo Success. The principles underlying what Dr. Maslow talks about is really imperative for you to be able to utilize as you address understanding the needs of your audience, okay? Because if you can understand the needs and wants of your audience, then you are so much better off at being able to address them and then to be able to satisfy them, which means that they're going to buy from you as opposed to buying from your competitor or not buying at all, okay? So they have a choice of no deal, or they can buy from you, or they can buy from someone else. You ultimately want them to buy from you if the need and want match the product or service that you're providing. Okay, and this is where the hierarchy of needs can really be fundamentally and illuminating for all of us. So on the screen, it may be a little bit fuzzy for you, but basically what it does is it starts us off at the base foundation of physiological needs, okay? And the physiological needs are, of course, food and water and sleep, sex, excrement, us being able to get rid of things, elimination as it's called, breathing, all of those functions of need, okay? It's our survival mechanisms, all right? And those are very, very basic needs, and when we talk about motivation, human motivation, those factors are what we call the basic biological drivers, okay? And so we feel hunger, we're going to eat. If we feel thirsty, we're going to drink. If we feel cold, we're going to want to seek shelter and put clothes on. All right, very basic. Next up is the sense of need for security, okay? And this is for us to be able to live comfortably in our environments. Some of those things might be job security, or feelings of having a safe in your home so you can put your valuable items in them and lock them away. This might be feeling like you live in a safe neighborhood, where you feel comfortable walking out onto the street at night. All of those kinds of physical security, as well as physical security of yourself and your property. Okay, we take the next step up toward what Maslow calls self-actualization, making our way toward the top of this pyramid, and we get to the central place, which is the sense of love and belonging. Okay, and love and belonging is really our desire to have romance, in some contexts to build a family, to have intimacy, and to have collegiality, friendships, and those kinds of things. We take another step up, and now we're near the top of our pyramid, and this is where we can spend quite a considerable amount of our time if we really focus on the good parts of our life, right? And this is the need and the feelings of importance in the world, okay? And not importance like self-indulgent importance, not narcissism, but really being able to feel good about yourself, to feel confident, to give the ability to respect and to receive respect. So giving and receiving respect are really important at these levels. And then once we've satisfied all, and again, you have to understand, this is about satisfying each of these foundational levels on our way up towards self-actualization, understanding why we push ourselves, to a limit. Okay, we try to exceed our limits once we've reached the zenith, which Maslow calls self-actualization. Now, we don't spend a lot of time here, by the way. We spend little bits of time here, either in parts of our day or in other contexts of our life. I use the idea of the daily review of our human needs, or the hierarchy of needs, because what we do is every day we seek to satisfy these base needs all the way up to self-actualization, and then we sort of reset and we start all over again every day. And we can put in mechanisms within our life, and you can put in mechanisms in your business to market that help satisfy these particular items for people, so that then they can sort of jumpstart and get to the part where they need to, get to the level they need to in order to buy your service. Right? So if you sold toilet paper, for instance, well, that ends up being on the physiological needs side, right? And so you can go ahead and understand that that's actually a very low threshold. That's why commodity services end up and typically stay in the lower tier of the pyramid, whereas higher commodity services or I'm sorry, higher luxury services tend to fall higher up on the chart, okay, higher up on the pyramid. So we sort of look at self-actualization as a repeating, I look at it as a repeating cycle throughout everybody's day. So where are people throughout the course of their day? And this is sort of the first recommendation, is to think about where people are in the course of their day and where's their mindset for you to be able to sell appropriately to them your product or service. By identifying where they are on the pyramid, okay? So if they're at the start of their day, if it's 6 a.m. and they open up their phone and they see the first Instagram post, is that addressing their physiological needs? I'm going to get up, I'm going to shower, I'm going to eat, dress, take care of the kids, get myself out the door. Well, that's where people's mindsets are. They're not at the point of, self-actualization yet because they haven't gotten their base needs met. If they're hungry, the last thing you want to do is talk to them about, their legacy in life, and how are people going to think about them post-mortem? So you have to really be aware of time of day associated with the people's, a person's needs, okay? So that's the hierarchy of needs. I just wanted to give you that basis and understanding so we can drive forward now in understanding how this applies. And I'm going to use, again, Solomo Success as a background because I use the social media strategy within Solomo Success as a good example here. So what I say as it relates to psychology, now I'm going to sort of give you in sociology so we can understand a strong social media strategy for impacting your business. All right, so I'm just going to use social media strategy as sort of a quick example. So we understand we have basic human needs. Now we understand the sociological needs of people, okay? So when we talk about groups, we talk about the idea that groups tend to have three basic needs. The individual and the group tends to want to give things, get things, and feel a sense of belonging. Do you see that sense of sort of parallel with the hierarchy of needs, right? So we see all of these items in the hierarchy of needs sort of just grouped together into these three basic pieces of the Venn diagram. Okay, and so we have these three pieces. People need a sense of giving, a sense of getting, and a sense of belonging. And what I do is I take that to examples like giving, for instance, in a group setting might be joining a philanthropic organization and giving your time as a volunteer. Okay, so as Tracy said at the top of the webinar, I volunteer my time at the SBDC to give these webinars, right? Now, in essence, I'm giving, I'm volunteering, okay? Someone else might join many people might join an organization to be able to get benefits, right? You become a member of an organization, and maybe it's a country club, or maybe it's the YMCA, and it's to be able to get access to a swimming pool or gym equipment and whatnot, but you know that the organization itself is a charitable organization and is giving back to the community. It's providing for people in a way that you couldn't do by yourself. Finally, the final other sort of group need is that people want a sense of belonging. Okay, groups always need to maintain that sense of belonging. Okay, that idea that you belong here. Okay, that you have something that is a common interest that makes you want to be there. Facebook, for example, helps to satisfy all three of these needs, and that's why it's such a powerful network. Okay. So I translate this now to social media, right? And what you want to do as a business owner is to be able to focus on how you can connect those three pieces together so that you have a cohesive strategy, all right? So I call this the Solomo Success Strategy. What we do is we take the three fundamental underpinnings of sociological, the sociological premise of giving, getting, and feeling a sense of belonging, and we connect that to listening, speaking, and connecting, right? Listening is the idea of going out there and searching out conversations and giving content to other people's platforms in order to be able to expose yourself to new communities, right? That's giving. Giving is exposing yourself in an authentic manner. Speaking is the idea of getting, because we put content on our own website or our own social media channels, and that draws people to us. Okay, so when we speak, we get people to come to us. That is the idea of pulling people in through content. We talked about pull marketing. That's the idea of pulling people closer to us by giving them valuable content that they want to consume. Finally, or not finally, next to finally, is connecting. The idea of creating a stronger sense of bond among the people in your social strategy. That means you go out there and you publicly connect people, right, so that people feel the social recognition, and we'll talk about this in a little while, but it's connecting people so they feel the social recognition and they're connected for a reason. So, if Sally is a realtor and you have Joe who's a potential home buyer, well, if you publicly connect via social media, Sally and, did I say Bob? Bob. If you connect Sally and Bob, now what you've done is you've publicly recognized Sally as someone that you know and trust. And Bob now has a need met within the social group in your community. And now they're stronger for it because they're going to get their needs met. Sally's going to get a real estate sale. Bob is going to get a new home and going to get the right realtor for the job. And now everybody sees that, who's in your community. And now you can take it offline, right? After that, you can take it offline. They can do what they need to do in their private setting in terms of their business negotiations and whatnot. And then when it's all said and done, both Sally and Bob get the opportunity to publicly praise you for connecting them in the first place. And there's a little bit of underlying stuff, which is what we'll talk about later, reciprocity, the feeling that you've given them both something and now they owe you something as well. Potentially more referrals, potentially referring you business, potentially buying from you directly. So the three outer parts of the Venn diagram allow you to be able to consistently foster a thriving community. Now I talk about measuring at the center of each of these parts because it's technology. And because it's technology, we're capable of measuring so much. Okay? So we just want to measure because the more we can measure, the more we can understand this as nothing more than potentially a statistical model that can answer lots of questions for us. Through business data analytics, we can understand what is happening and how to make better business decisions from that information. Okay? So very similar to just understanding more about your customer, understanding the numbers allows us to be able to, qualitative or quantitative measurements allows us to be able to understand our customers better and make better marketing and business decisions. Okay? So that's where it all comes together. It comes together by listening, speaking, and connecting, and that's how those human needs meet up with the sociological needs into a strategy. So that's the whole principle behind sort of understanding the parts of hierarchy of needs or any paradigm for human needs and wants, looking at it in a group context and then applying a strategy. And so what I'd like you to do once we're done with this webinar is to look at all of these pieces as a way to put together a cohesive strategy, an integrative strategy, so that it's all working together to move your business marketing forward. Okay? So let's just talk about some of the applications in web marketing. So now that we know this in sort of a general perspective, and I've given you one example for social media, let's talk about the ways in which we can use web marketing and just some of the examples that came to mind as I was thinking about preparing this. And these are the examples that I'll be talking about as we work through the various 8 psychology principles that you can utilize. All right, so first is keyword research. All right, now this is all about intent as opposed to relevance first. Okay, so most people talk about relevance. You want to be relevant in the keywords and so on and so forth. But keywords are not just about online marketing for the search engines. They're also actually a very, very powerful component as it relates to understanding your customer and being able to trigger them, the human side of how they respond to the keywords that you utilize with them. So for example, using legal or technical jargon with regard to your consumers may be very off-putting to someone because they don't know, what particular things are. You see this in hospitals all the time. You go into a hospital if and you're not feeling well, and they are walking around you using acronyms and medical terminology that you would never understand. And if they were there, if they're probably not talking hopefully to you about it, but it does give you a sense of it's a little off-putting that you don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about you and the pain you're feeling. And so what you want to be able to do as a business owner is to be able to use keywords both to affect the search engines, but that when you're connecting and talking to humans, you use terms that are relatable to them, okay? And that effectively communicate to them some, in a way that makes them want to move closer to you as opposed to further away from you, okay? Next is our buyer personas. If you don't know what a buyer persona is, I'll give you a little bit of an explanation. A buyer persona is the idea of putting together an archetype or a profile of your various buyers, okay, or potential buyers, depending upon how you're looking at it. But anyway, the point is that you want to be able to name your different demographics so that you have a better way of communicating with them. I'll give you an example. So say that I have a small cafe in Roanoke, okay? And so I have a small cafe in Roanoke, Virginia. It's on a little, cute main street, cute side street there in downtown Roanoke. And so I want to be able to identify the people who live and work in the area who come to my cafe. And so what I'm going to identify is maybe a professional working mom that I'm going to call Susan. And so Susan is a professional working mom. She's 37. She has 2 kids, and her husband, maybe works, a little bit outside of downtown. She lives outside of downtown, so it's very close for him, but she's got to commute into downtown every day for work, and we can identify that she makes roughly $60,000 a year, and she has a mortgage that she, obviously pays with her husband, and she likes to buy and treat herself with a morning latte. Okay, and we can continue answering these questions about Susan. We could say, or Suzanne, I forget what I just said. But we could say Susan has she has a smartphone. She has an iPhone, and so she hasn't upgraded her iPhone because she's really comfortable with the one she has. She has a 5S, and she's decided she's going to keep that for as long as it's running until she gives it up. Okay. Now, what have I done? I've created it from the abstract data. Someone who, by describing her, you get to sort of know who Susan is, right? You start to feel what Susan's all about. You start to know who Susan is. And knowing her means that you as a business owner can directly speak to her in your marketing communications, okay? What we want to do is, you don't just have Susan walking into your store, you probably have, a Michael and maybe younger people, so you maybe have a millennial who you want to identify. And by being able to do that, your advertisements are going to be focused in different places for those different people. And you're going to talk directly to Susan and to Michael and to your millennial caller Jill, and by creating these buyer personas, you're really able to more effectively communicate because you're speaking to an individual that fits the archetype of your abstract, okay? So it makes it real. And it's really important for you as a business owner to make that real. And some business owners can actually take a current customer who's their ideal customer and then write the buyer persona to fit and match that person. Okay. Now this is for internal purposes, so you're not sharing this with anybody, other than your internal team. So you don't have to, expose this to the world that that's who you're speaking to. But it can be very, very useful to have a buyer persona. Okay. So in web marketing, you're going to get lots of data from seeing social media and other people visiting your websites as well as email, and you can go ahead and start to create these buyer personas for people visiting your website because you can search them. You can find their LinkedIn profile. You can find out what careers they have. You can search for their social media, find them on Facebook, and as they call Facebook stalking. You can Facebook stalk them and identify those few people who are your ideal customers as well as your customer advocates, those brand advocates as they call them, people who are out there championing your services or products for your small business, and therefore you're able to go ahead and say, oh wow, that's that person, that's the face. Identify a name and a face, a heart and a mind to that buyer persona, so that you're then able to then more effectively communicate to them. All right, this is especially useful in e-commerce, of course, but that's how that all goes. Okay, data analysis. Obviously, you can use these psychological principles for being able to understand people better. By collecting data from your website, from social, and from email, you're going to get a lot more information by understanding these different data points, and therefore utilize it better in marketing. So again, that just goes back to my point about better business decisions comes from better data. Advertisements. Many times we'll be, we just throw up ads, whether that be Google AdWords or a Facebook promoted post or a Facebook ad or a Twitter ad or, a local newspaper ad. We just throw up these ads and we hope that people are that something's going to stick with people. I'm going to talk about some of the psychological principles that underpin advertising and how we can actually utilize them better, both in what the SE stands for search engine and SM for social media campaigns. Okay, so search engine would be Google ads, social media would be a Facebook ad, okay, or a Twitter ad or a LinkedIn ad. Next up, content production. Content production is so important to understand the principles that I'm going to talk about, because you're speaking to the human at that point. Okay, when someone opens up your website or opens up your blog and opens up an article, you are communicating with a heart and mind on the other side of technology, and you need to be able to effectively communicate to those people without seeming like you're talking to a robot. And of course, marketing collateral, and we're going to talk about that very soon, talking about how you create good marketing collateral. This is not just your website and blog articles and social media posts, but the things that might be a downloadable brochure or ebooks or e-guides or checklists that you go ahead and create on your website. You want to make sure that you're using the right psychological principles to affect those needs and wants of your consumer. Okay, so it's just some basic applications, and we're going to talk about those as we make our way through the 8 psychology principles for marketing. And the 8 psychology principles that I'll be discussing with the balance of our time will be these. First up, priming, the idea of setting in an initial data set so that people have initial information, and that of course leads them to change their movement, their actions based on the first information that they receive from you. Second is reciprocity. Reciprocity we talked about earlier, and I'm going to go into more detail about the idea of the law of reciprocity. If you give something to somebody, they feel a natural desire to go ahead and return the favor. Social proof and authority. This is extolled in the book Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Several of these principles actually are talked about in Influence. So if you haven't ever read the book, I would really highly recommend it. It's a seminal work in business marketing. It sort of talks about the psychology of influence, and so Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini, Cialdini, and so social proof and authority. Social proof is how my peers behave is the way I'm going to behave, and authority, of course, is who I am and what I bring to the table that shows that I know what I'm talking about. Decoy effect, we're going to talk about the decoy effect. That's a little bit more in depth, but the idea is to place a decoy into your marketing so that people choose another option. Okay. Foot in the door is to be able to ease people into the real sale that you want them to have, and we'll talk about that. Scarcity and anchoring. Dr. Stephen Covey was the big proponent in the late 80s and early 90s about the idea of scarcity and abundance. And in marketing, of course, that makes a heck of a lot of difference. If something is a scarce resource, right, if supply and demand is the thing that manages here. And we're going to talk about anchoring. Anchoring is a special kind of use of the scarcity principle, and we'll talk about that shortly. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. We're going to talk about the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, which is sometimes called the frequency illusion, the illusion of frequency, and then reticular formation. And we'll talk about the reticular formation when we get there, but the reticular formation is basically different parts of the brain that together help identify that which is different. Okay, we notice things that are different than habituation. Okay, and finally, we're going to talk about surprise rewards, and you'll be surprised by surprise rewards. So let's get into the principles. First and foremost is priming. Now, first, people tend to not understand what priming really is, and so let me just get into what priming really is. So I have heard, in different research, people use the example of telephone. And you know the game of telephone. You whisper into somebody's ear a phrase or something like that, and that is then repeated to the next person. It's whispered into the next person's ear, and then it's whispered into the next person's ear. And when you get to the final person, what do you tend to hear, right? Um, People hear different things, and that leads to usually the person at the end saying something very comically not similar to the thing that starts someone off, okay? But what we know about telephone is that there is actually there's an underlying psychological principle that that triggers thoughts, pattern recognition, when we initiate you know, some kind of word. So, for example, if I say you know, blue and up, right? If you think blue and up, most people tend to think sky, or they think cloud, or they think something like that, okay? The idea here is that I've primed you to think about something. And you could do this in many, many different ways, from when we talked about content production, making sure that you start off your blog posts or any marketing copy with the appropriate story that helps to prime people about the context of why your product or service is important. But remember that psychological priming is not about manipulating your audience so much as it is helping to guide them to the best purchase decision, okay? And that may mean sometimes that it's not to buy from you or not to buy now. But that goes a long way to you building loyalty and trust with them, or them building, you know, them having loyalty to you and you building trust from them, so that over time they'll want to refer you business and buy from you at a later point, or buy the right product. You don't want people to buy the wrong product and have a bad experience, or you know, hire you for the wrong service and have a bad experience. So priming is all about utilizing the principles so that people know, okay, I'm going to give you some information, and that information is going to set the stage for you to make better decisions. Okay, so you know, there are all kinds of examples of being able to utilize priming well, and let's just talk about a couple of them. One, I see this all the time on really good websites, and I see this poorly done all the time on many, many websites, which is that you'll have images that are associated with your business that have very little to no value in priming your client or potential customer to what you actually do, okay, or to your services. So you'll see those sort of clip art images that are on websites that don't actually connect, you know, or stock photo images that don't actually connect to your business or product, okay? So when you come to a website and you see a background image that's, you know, say the service is you know, Apple iPhone, right? So people see the Apple iPhone, and you know, people using the iPhone, they see this beautiful image. Well, they're going to immediately associate that product with whatever they're going to read. If you see a car, you know, a video on the main website, and it's, you know, driving beautifully around, you know, a nice neighborhood, and you know, it's taking curves very nicely, and it can stop, you know, so that, you know, if a child runs out in the street, it has auto alert to be able to alert the child and to apply the brakes and really stop. You see that on the web page. What are you going to immediately think about? You're going to think about a safe neighborhood. You're going to think of a car attached to that safe neighborhood and the safety features of that vehicle. Well, what you're naturally going to gravitate toward in and on the website, and presuming a car website, you're going to gravitate toward that information. So what is it about your product or service that you want people to really focus on so that that stays top of mind? They're primed to keep that top of mind as they start to browse your website. And this includes social media and all kinds of other things, right? Analogies in your marketing copy can be really important as well. If you analogize something, start off your text with an analogy or with a story, you're going to be able to, that's going to be resonant in the person's forefront of their mind. So as they're browsing the rest of your material, they're going to be inclined to keep that in their you know, in their periphery, in their mental periphery, not in their visual periphery. So what you want to do is you want to choose what your audience should focus on when they come to anything that is on your website, on your blog, or on your social media. You want to identify the focus as the benefits of your product or service, right? So in the case of a home alarm system, right, we know that the home alarm system's best sales point is not that it has cameras and that it has window and door sensors and that it has 24/7, operation, and it has two keypads, one for the front door and one for the back door. Those are all features, right? The benefits, the reason you have a home security system is peace of mind. You want to know that your family is going to be safe and secure in your home. And your home alarm system creates that ultimate benefit. So what you would do on a website that's selling a home alarm system is showing a family that's safe, showing a burglar being taken away from the home and the family sitting at home inside safely, not unaware that the burglar was captured. Something to that effect, right? You can visualize in your mind's eye the benefit of having a home security system without ever seeing anything but the branding, the logo of the home alarm system company. That's the kind of priming that you want to do for your customer utilizing your web marketing properties. Okay, so that's priming. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and Tracy can poke in and interrupt me, and I can be sure to answer those questions. Next up is reciprocity. Reciprocity, as I said before, is the give before you get concept. Dr. Cialdini talks about this principle in his book, Influence, and he talks about the idea that people have a natural desire to give once you have given first, okay? Now, there's a company called Business Networking International. Some of you might know of it. It's BNI. And BNI was started by Dr. Ivan Meisner, and he utilizes this term called giver's gain. And I really like the term giver's gain because what Dr. Meisner talks about is the idea that you actually benefit from being able to give referrals first. Business Networking International is a referral organization, so groups get together every week and they refer business to one another. And so the idea here is that the more you give, the greater you benefit. And understandably, Dr. Meisner is right, at least on the idea of reciprocity. If I initially give something to my customers, they are naturally going to feel a sense that they want to give me something. So a regular example are free workshops or webinars that a business owner might give. In the idea that once those people know more about the product or service, right? So if I were teaching you about how my product or service works, I'm going to feel like you just gave me something, and now in response, I have this unconscious desire to give back to you in some way, shape, or form. And that might fall into buying your product or service or referring you to someone who might know it, might need or want it. Okay, so that's sort of how it works. I talk about this in again, my book, Solo Success, but I believe in this so much, I'm going to talk about it again, which is the valuable downloadable asset, okay? And this principle is such that you create a website where people basically have to give up their email address in order to be able to gain access to something valuable that they can retain and hold on to, okay? And this touches base with the loss aversion principle, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a later slide, so I won't get to it here. But basically the idea here is that you're going to create something that's going to be really, really powerful. So this could be an ebook that you create, and an ebook doesn't have to be 300 pages long and all that kinds of stuff. It could be just 20 pages and be a PDF Word document. You PDF it and now it's ready to be downloaded. So an ebook, a video that you produce on your computer with this with screen software, screen recording software. You use a PowerPoint presentation. You record it with your audio over it, talking about some particular topic that's of value to your audience. You could do it as an audio podcast, just recording audio on your computer and saving it as an MP3 file and then putting it in the background of your website for people to be able to download. You can make a membership library that's access to webinars that you're giving over time, so that people have to give up their email address in order to be able to go ahead and access those free webinars, because it's free live, but it's not free. Basically, you have to give me your email address in order to get the free thing afterward. A checklist. Many times people don't know how to best utilize your service. Help them help you help them, right? The idea here is that you're going to go ahead and create a checklist on how to best hire a professional organizer, okay? And then you identify all the functions and features that you need, plus the criteria that are resonant for someone to be able to, that are resident for people to be able to hire the best professional organizer. And of course, you're going to marry what you say on your website under your services. The benefits and features of your business as a professional organizer are going to match identically to the checklist for those features that you're looking for from a professional organizer, right? So you're going to be the perfect ideal fit for the person who downloads that and looks at their checklist. They're going to be like, okay, the professional organizer I choose should have X, Y, and Z, and this professional organizer that I downloaded it from, they state that they have X, Y, and Z, and maybe they even have a testimonial that tells me from somebody else that they have all those features, okay? That they have all of those resident checkmark items, so that now I know that there's social proof from someone, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, for choosing and selecting you as the professional organizer over someone else, okay? So we create this valuable downloadable asset, and what we do is we put that all over the website, right? That you can download this valuable asset, from us, and now I know that I'm going to get that from you, and the only thing that I have to give up is a little bit of information, okay? And that information can be as limited as an email address. It could be a little bit more. It could be, when are you thinking about, purchasing this particular item? So are you going to buy a car in the next, month, 3 months, year? What's your buying cycle? It could be your name and phone number and email address. It depends on how much what a person is willing to give up for being able to get this particular item from you, okay? So it's utilizing the law of reciprocity that, okay, you want to give me something for free, I'm willing to give you my email address for it, all right? So that's the law of reciprocity. This works with free trials and samples, okay? And so what we talk about with regard to free trials is that if you give out free samples of things, especially in a web world where downloading a digital item doesn't really have that much of a cost to it, it's an insignificant cost for downloading a digital item, that it becomes a very easy thing. Now, if you're sending free samples or giving free trials of your product or service, then there's a little bit of cost to it. But the free trial, if done effectively, can be a really great example of how to utilize reciprocity for that. The idea of a freemium service, having basically a low-level service that is bare bones, right, so that it's just enough to give people an idea about your service or product, and engages what we call loss aversion on the other side, which is that the freemium, say, expires after 30 days. You get a 30-day free trial. You could use my service for 30 days, unlimited. You just utilize it. You get all the functions. After 30 days, the service ceases. Well, people engage what's called loss aversion. They now have become accustomed to utilizing your product or service. They don't want to lose it. So they're like, oh my gosh, I better not lose it, so I better pay to keep it going. And then they feel this sense of, satisfaction from being able to not have lost what they have gained. So giving away a little bit of something for free can gain you business on the back end. All right, it's got to be done logically and reasonably, good strategy in mind, but utilizing the valuable downloadable asset as well as free trials and samples can be very effective. Okay, free tools on your website. You see this on insurance websites quite frequently, or mortgage loan officers, mortgage institutions will do this, banks will do this. They'll have calculators. You can create these calculators very simply and easily. Helping people understand with, there are tools on many websites that help people do these little, cost calculators and that kind of thing. It's just a little bit of code. And so, how to calculate, the square footage cost for utilizing your service if you're a painter or like some other kind of service provider or product where they just want to know what the cost is going to be, right? So generally, how much is this going to cost me? If I have no idea, I'm less likely to buy because I don't know how much it's going to cost me, and so that not knowing, it creates a sense of aversion for me to even starting the project. But the calculator, you're now giving me the information. I now have this little psychological, unconscious tick in the back of my mind that says, oh, you gave that to me, so now when I decide to buy, I should go check your services out versus someone else's. All right, so that's giving away free tools like a calculator or other kinds of things that people will have. And again, you're gonna brand all of these things that are valuable downloadable assets. You're gonna brand it. You're gonna put your contact information on it, and you even might want to include a call to action inside of that valuable downloadable asset, that free trial or sample or that tool, so that people have you top of mind to know what the next step is to be able to use your service over someone else's. All right, so that's the law of reciprocity. Next up is social proof and authority. All right, so social proof is just the very basic premise that I said earlier. People will behave like others in a peer group. All right, so think about it from the perspective that if if someone is doing, if you see everybody walk up to a line, okay, at the grocery store, and you see that line, you will typically fall in line in the line. You don't cut into the line, do you? You don't walk to the beginning of a line that you see is formed. You naturally get to the end of the line that has been formed. Almost everyone does it. People who might have psychological problems will not. But by and large, normative minds will just fall in line and get in line. Okay, it's what we do. So we want to use that sense that people look to what other people are doing in order to act themselves as a mechanism for marketing our business. You can use tools like ShareBar, and I'm not going to get into too much detail about these, but ShareBar is basically a bar that sits on the side, bottom, or top of your website in order to be able to show social media buttons, okay? And those social media buttons show maybe the number of times you've shared something on Facebook. Twitter no longer does this, so you can't do it with Twitter, but Twitter used to show how many times a tweet was shared. It can show you how many times a LinkedIn post was shared, or how many times someone has +1 something on Google Plus or other social networks. How many times someone's pinned something on Pinterest. So you can use the share bar and another product called Hello Bar that actually pops down and utilizes the tool to be able to show people that other people are downloading this. So the Hello Bar doesn't naturally do this, so you can write something like, join our 2,500 other email subscribers for our email newsletter, and then you have your email sign-up form there. That's creating social proof. It's telling you there are others like me out there who would want to do this, so I should do it too. Okay? It's the lemming effect. So we're just going to follow other people's activities when we see that in a peer group. And we presume that if I visited your website or your blog, then other people who visited your website or blog are like me, and therefore I'm going to act like they did. So showing those kinds of things. Shareaholic is another great tool. It shows, Shareaholic shows the little share buttons inside the post, a blog post or a page on your website, and it shows the ability to share out to the various social networks or to send something by email, and then it shows you how many times someone has shared it as well. Okay, so it gives you that little bit of social proof that tells you that you are like others and that you should do what others are doing. Facebook and Google Plus comments. This is even more powerful because Facebook and Google Plus show people who are in your network, if they are, and it shows their faces. So you can see that your friends have also commented on this or have liked this page. And that engages me to want to like that page as well, okay? Because of Joe and Sally and Rick and Bob, they've all liked the Facebook page, and they're my Facebook friends in my peer group. I'm going to go ahead and like it as well. All right, and then if they're commenting even, then that's even better because you're going to engage in the conversation. You're going to be much more likely to engage in that conversation if you know the people who are engaging on that particular page or blog post or otherwise. All right, so you can utilize tools for social proof. Authority is just the idea of making sure that in and around your website you are showing the right title, the right roles, the right images of those roles. So if you went to if you're some kind of allied health professional or other kind of medical professional, you want to, of course, show yourself wearing the appropriate attire for someone who is a medical professional, right? It might be scrubs, it might be wearing, a medical jacket, a lab coat, or whatever it might be, to show people that you are, you fit the stereotype that they presume when they come to your page, okay, or your blog post or your website. Testimonials are a great way to get authority because people are basically telling you that they are like you, social proof, but they are then telling you that, this person, this provider, you are the authority to them, okay? And since you're like them, you're going to want to go, you as a consumer are like them, then they should hire you, the business owner, as they did. Okay, so it's all about utilizing social proof and authority together. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about the decoy effect. This is really fun and interesting. But basically, what you want to do is you want to give a frame of reference for the customer, so they opt for the better or the best service for them. This comes actually from a study done by Dan Ariely. He's a research professor. And what he did was he noticed The Economist. And The Economist magazine, it had this website page up that was selling its magazine. And let's say it says the online edition, okay, was there for $29. The online publication subscription was there for $29. He then saw the next option, which said the print edition. If you wanted the print edition mailed to you, that subscription was $125. Okay, so $29, $125, and then if you wanted the online and the print subscription together, it was $125. Okay, 29, 125, 125. And what he did was he did a study, and he learned that by including the print edition alone in the center, more people, dramatically more people bought the online and print edition for the same price as the print edition, right? 125, 125, because the print edition $125 subscription existed. All right. So this also works in dating. Okay. Here goes a funny example, but it's what it is. When you go dating, you actually want a wingman or a wingwoman, a wing person, right, that is very similar to you, but just slightly less attractive than you, okay? And the reason for that is that if you walk into a bar, okay, or a social event, and you're standing next to someone who is just slightly less attractive than you, then you are the better option, right? So there's the group of people, right? The person's not interested in the group. There is the median option. The median option is your friend who is just slightly less attractive than you. And guess what? The person who catches your eye is going to see the B option, and they're going to choose you, the A option, almost every time. This has been studied many, many times and is very, very well-founded. But when there's an A and a slightly less B option, A always wins. So we know this frame of reference movement is available. We want to place a decoy in mind of our consumers. All right, and this is how we do it. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our pricing is set up so that we are able to show people that we have A, B, and C. A is our baseline bare necessity model, okay? B is, more expensive, but is basically a slightly lesser version than our deluxe, all right? And people are always going to buy the deluxe. McDonald's uses this all the time, right? People will buy, the greater, Starbucks does this also, right? You have the various sizes, and people tend to buy the larger size when it's only slightly more money to buy it. The difference between a grande and a venti is a minimal, insignificant amount of cost. So you're always thinking, well, okay, I'm going to buy the venti because the venti's just only 20 cents more. Okay, so we always want to think about that in terms of the decoy effect and how we're utilizing that with our customers. All right, next up is the foot in the door technique, and the foot in the door technique is just basically helping facilitate the customer to make that first purchase, to get them in the door. All right, and once they get their foot in the door, the more effort that they provide, the greater their loyalty and the bigger you're going to be able to sell them on the next thing. All right. So an example would be contests. That's supposed to say contests with public recognition. So the first thing you can do is to launch a social media campaign. And a social media campaign is going to expose people to your brand. It's going to get them to do something fun and interesting. And in exchange for that, they're going to get social recognition. The winner is going to get recognized. All right. Now that winner hasn't bought a thing, hasn't done anything with your business yet, or they might buy your product and use it as a part of the contest maybe, but now they're going to be recognized. That means they're going to become a brand advocate, they're going to become more loyal, which means they're going to buy more from you, refer more business to you, okay? So it just means that if you can have a lower priced incentive to get people in the door, right, a lower priced product, then the likelihood of them coming back and becoming a repeat customer is that much easier, and you can make the larger sales that way. Okay, that's the foot in the door technique. Next up is scarcity and anchoring, and I talked a little bit about this before, so I'm going to go briefly over this, but it's just show that your product or service is limited in some way, shape, or form to create a sense of scarcity, to show that basically demand outpaces supply, and that because it does, you should be motivated to buy more and to buy now. Okay, so you want them to buy now versus later, and you want them to buy more instead of less. The greatest example is utilizing Amazon for this. Amazon always does this. One, they use anchoring to a great effect, and anchoring is the idea of showing a set, what we call setting. Setting is the idea of showing an initial data point, right? That is, I know that my environment tells me that jeans, jeans that I would purchase cost anywhere from $50 to $100. All right, so my frame of reference is $50 to $100. Now, if I go to Express or Banana Republic or Macy's or Nordstrom and I see a pair of jeans for $35, whoa, I'm getting a great deal. Okay, I'm anchored to the original price, and now I see the frame within my frame of reference, my environment, and now I see the sale price, and I see the difference, and now I'm engaged to go ahead and buy the sale item at the sales price because it set me into this perspective. Now, what Amazon does is it shows you that original price on every product and what the discount is, right? And then they say, well, we only have 5 left in stock, so you better buy it now so that you can get it. And they also show you the time frame in which you can get it. If you order it today, you'll have it by Tuesday. If you order it now, you can have it same-day delivery. So they give you this sense of time and quantity scarcity so that you are capable of making that sooner choice, being motivated to make that sooner choice. You want to do that yourself on your website when it comes to e-commerce or your sales marketing collateral that tells people about it. This is really also very powerful in events. So for events, you should always show the number of tickets that are decreasing once a good sum of them have been sold. I've actually seen some companies, what they do is they'll show you, maybe they have 100 tickets available. Well, if you see 100 out of 100 tickets available, well, you're like, nobody's going. I'm not going to register for that. So what they do is they say, 25 of 100 tickets are available. So they maybe choose a random number. 23 tickets left. Well, they still have 100 tickets, but only 23 are available for sale because what that means is that there is, 7 people who are going to the event in my mind, okay? And so they're like, okay, 23 tickets, oh my gosh, I should get a ticket now before it sells out. Now they sell the 23 tickets and they just go ahead and increase the allotment to the balance of the tickets left because now momentum has started. They see the social proof, other people have done it, they feel the scarcity, and they're anchored against what the price is going to be. So early bird pricing, for example, creates anchoring, right? We know the price is $100, but it's currently early bird pricing for only $75. I better buy it now before it goes up more. So you can use scarcity and anchoring as that. We talked about, I talked about in the beginning, the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or what's called the frequency illusion, or the illusion of frequency. And this is just the idea that the more your customer sees your product or service, the more important it will become to them. Basically, what we talk about in marketing is touch points, right? That magic number is 7. We typically talk about we need at least 7 times for someone to see something before they get secure on the fact that that's what they want. And so you need to basically utilize that well in it. This falls, it dovetails in line with what we call reticular formation. So what you need to do against your competitors is to be able to be noticed above the rest, right? So if you see a sea of products, all of your products among your competitors, you need to become the thing that is different. You need to differentiate your product well enough so that you don't get sort of marginalized in all of the other various options, right? So if your product is a commodity-based product, what's different about yours, and highlight that, because then as you start to see your product as your customer starts to see, your potential customer starts to see your product in various places, then it's going to be more important to them, and they're going to be much more likely to buy from you. So we really want to use the frequency of illusion, or the illusion frequency, and then the reticular formation components to be able to work in tandem with one another, so that people see yours as different, and then see yours often enough to then want to buy from you. Okay. This works really well in remarketing ads in search engine and social media. What is remarketing? It's the idea that we have the premise of an ad. Okay, say you search for something on Google. Well, what Google does is it knows that you searched for it, and now what it's going to do is it's going to show that ad in different places over time because it knows that you were interested in the first place. That's remarketing, by basically following you and showing you ads for products that you would otherwise be interested in. So remarketing for you as a business owner means that you're capable of looking at what your customers have searched for, what data do you know about them, and then showing that to them later on down the road. That could be content or ads, and giving that to them in different places, and that will cue them into wanting it and then engaging the frequency illusion. Okay, so you really need to do that based on your unique selling proposition, what makes you different. All right, and then closing up, we're going to talk about surprise rewards, and then I'll hand it over to Tracy for Q&A and closing out. So surprise rewards is basically the idea that studies have shown that weekly coupons don't work. When people are given the same option for a discount, the best example is Bed Bath & Beyond. You probably all know this, but Bed Bath & Beyond gives you the same coupon all the time. They mail it to you on a schedule, and you get it and you keep them, and they always honor them without, even though the deadline is passed for that expiration date on the coupon. That doesn't engage people to utilize it. When people go to Bed Bath & Beyond, they use them because they always have one in their drawer. But surprise coupons are actually surprisingly more effective. What you need to do is you need to go out there and make sure that you surprise your customers with exclusive coupons based on particular networks. If you sign up for my email list, then we give occasions. This creates loyalty, and creates a sense of surprise and enjoyment for the people who receive those, a sense of exclusivity, and so people really like this. So choose a reward for email list or for social media that are exclusive to each of those platforms, and only release those coupons to those platforms, and do that on a sporadic schedule. Okay, so don't just every 3 weeks before Halloween give a Halloween discount. The Easter discount for your retail shop a week or a month before Easter begins. You want to be able to surprise them with little things throughout the year that's going to keep them on their toes, and that's going to drive greater sales. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy. I know we have to close out, but I'm here and happy to stay for question and answer, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Ray. I'm going to go ahead and close out. If you do have any questions, please type them in the question window while I'm speaking, and like Ray said, he'll hang around and answer those. Thanks everyone for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded, and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on this webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in that email. I also posted it in the chat window, so please feel free to click on it now and fill that survey out to help us to continue to improve our webinars. We will see everyone on May 19th for Small Business Financial Management. And Ray, we do not have any questions, so we'll go ahead and close out the webinar. Again, thank you for presenting today and for everyone participating.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tracy.